Hello all, you're watching Seeking Ultra, and today we're going to have a look at the Salomon Ultra Glide Freeze. Being honest, this is my first time trying Salomons in a very long time, but over the past couple of years I've noticed a lot more innovation from the brand in their running shoes, so I was curious to take a look. I'm doing Ultra Trail Snowdonia very soon, and I was looking for a shoe that could handle those miles but also had enough grip to tackle those tough scrambles and terrain in the Welsh mountains. How do the Ultra Glide Freeze stack up though? Well, I've done over 100k in these shoes now, on a variety of different terrains and trails. So now I'm ready to give my overall thoughts on these shoes. I haven't had any experience with the previous Ultra Glide 2s, so I'm coming at this with a fresh look. With that in mind, I'll start with the facts and figures. When you look at the Ultra Glide Freeze, you can tell they're quite a bulky shoe. Definitely aimed at the max cushion side of trail running, but looks can be deceiving. Weight-wise, they're not too bad at all. In my size 10.5 UK, they weigh in at 325 grams, which for a road shoe would be quite heavy, but for trail, I don't find them to be that bad actually. Definitely a lot lighter than other max cushion trail shoes out there like the A6 Trabuco Max series, and it's not far behind shoes like the Merrell Agility Peak 5s, which are a lot lower in stack height in comparison. Drop wise, we've got a 6mm drop with a 41mm stack at the heel and 35mm in the forefoot. So not the most aggressive drop out there, but it should suit a wide range of runners. Now let's move on to price. When you add the words Salomon and Max Cushion together, they're both kind of bywords for expensive in their own right. You would think the Ultra Glide Freeze should be right up there in price, and I'm not going to lie, they're definitely not budget shoes, but they come in at £135 here in the UK, which I think is pretty reasonable for what you're getting here. It undercuts the Hoka Speedgoat 6s by £5, and it's a lot cheaper than other max cushion trail shoes out there like the Nike Zagama 2s and the A6 Trabuco Max 4s. So personally, I think Salomon have done a good job on the pricing here, but are they any good? Let's take a look at the construction of the Ultra Glide Freeze, starting with the upper and working our way down to the outsole. The upper is made mostly up of an engineered mesh, which Salomon say is made from recycled materials, and that's obviously good from a sustainability standpoint, and it's an excuse for us to buy even more running shoes, as if we needed an excuse, let's face it. I've tried many shoes made out of recycled materials in the past, and sometimes I found the materials to be a little bit abrasive and rigid. But I'm glad to say on the Ultra Glide Freeze, the main upper material isn't too bad. I mean, it's not the softest on the market, but it's definitely got a bit of give to it, and I haven't noticed any irritation on any of my runs. And on the heel here, there's quite a rigid reinforced section. I'm guessing it's for added stability. But on the inside of the shoe, there's an abundance of padding, so it's actually pretty comfortable here in the heel. Moving on to the tongue, there's a fully gusseted tongue here, which I like to see, and there's an internal sleeve inside the shoe, which Salomon call their endo fit. And it's basically designed to hug the foot in all the right places to provide a secure fit. Speaking of secure fit, Salomon have used their trademark quick lace system here to provide a consistent and easy to achieve lockdown. You can tighten the laces in one pull and then tuck them away under a little compartment housed inside the tongue, and you'll never have to worry about your laces coming undone again. Moving forward on the upper, there's some reinforcements around the edge of the upper where it connects to the midsole, and a more rigid toe reinforcement for added protection at the front here. Fit-wise, the Ultra Glide Freeze were true to size for me. The toe box isn't too narrow, but it isn't overly wide either. For me, normally that'd be a problem as I've got quite wide feet, but the material in the toe box has a bit of give to it, so I do find it accommodates slightly wider feet as well. I haven't had any irritation or blisters so far, with my longest run being 38 kilometers. Now let's move on to the midsole, which, let's be honest, is the main talking point of most shoes. As I mentioned before, there's a hefty stack of midsole on the Ultra Glide Freeze. Salomon have gone with a lightweight EVA based compound, which they call their energy foam midsole. For those of you who get turned off by the mention of an EVA midsole, not all EVA midsoles are equal in my opinion, and this feels like one of the better ones. There's plenty of cushioning underfoot, and I feel like especially going downhill, the energy foam is soaking up a lot of that impact and my legs feel a lot better for it post-run. Despite the cushioning, the midsole is not a mushy mess either. There's some decent energy return here. Nothing like the amount in the Adidas Terex Speed Ultra for example, but it holds its own for a max cushion trail shoe in this price bracket. I'll describe the whole midsole experience as smooth and relaxed. The outsole is next, and here's where things really start to get interesting. The actual lug pattern isn't actually the interesting part, although in my testing it's been surprisingly good on all sorts of terrain, from rocky surfaces up in the mountains of Snowdonia to more chalky dry trails on the North Downs. The outsole is what Salomon calls all-terrain contra grip, and it's designed to tackle a variety of different surfaces instead of specialising in one area. The lugs are 4mm deep and they're laid out in quite a sparse pattern here, which concerned me at first, but they definitely have had enough grip to tackle most of what I've thrown at them. The real unique feature of this shoe though is Salomon have added in these wavy patterns in the midsole and outsole of the shoe, which they call relief sphere. This pattern is designed to break down repeated underfoot impact and diffuse the pressure on your foot over longer distances. It's an interesting feature which I wonder if it'll catch on in the future or if it's just going to be a one-time gimmick. Okay, now I've been through the specs of this shoe and the different components, I want to move on to what I liked about the Salomon Ultra Glide 3s and what I think could be improved on future versions of the shoe. My first impressions of the Ultra Glide 3s were how locked in my feet are in these shoes. They're my first pair of trail shoes where I've experienced zero movement of my feet inside the shoe, even on very steep downhill sections of running. I know the quick lay system isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it's just really worked for me. So much so that I've decided to use the Salomon Ultra Glide 3s for UTS this year, where the lockdown's going to be really important. Despite these being quite high stack for mountainous terrain, they give me the confidence that my feet are locked in and I'm not going to roll an ankle or stumble about on uneven surfaces. Moving on to my second like, and it's the midsole. Okay, so this energy foam EVA based midsole won't give you maximum energy return compared to some more speed focused trail shoes out there on the market. But Salomon never claimed it would. At the same time, the midsole isn't so cushioned that you don't feel anything of what goes on below your foot. What you do get though is a nice balanced combination of energy return and cushioning, which creates a very smooth ride. There's a nice bounce underfoot, but it never feels uncontrolled, which is important when tackling tough terrain. And I don't know if it's those relief spheres or if it's the actual midsole foam, but it does feel like I can do many miles in this shoe and not have any aches or pains in my feet. Now, I want to talk about grip. One of the biggest reasons I was interested in the Salomon Ultra Glide 3s was that I needed some cushioned shoes that will go the distance, but will provide some serious levels of grip. And I certainly haven't been let down by the Contra Grip outsole on the Ultra Glide 3s. I ran on many different surfaces, from rocky terrain to drive smooth trails to woodland, and I was always confident that these shoes would keep me on my feet. I only had a couple of minor slips, but they were on really steep downhills. But then again, I think most shoes would get unstuck here. Another aspect of the Ultra Glide 3s which I like is the really stable ride. Even though the midsole's stack tops out at 41mm, which is quite a lot for any shoe, let alone the trail shoe, it didn't feel that unstable, to be honest. It's probably because there's these really big sidewalls of foam which wrap around the foot, so you really feel like you're inside the midsole instead of on top of it, if that makes sense. That combined with the really good lockdown has meant for the stack height, it feels like it's got a nice, controlled, stable ride. Of course, it's not going to feel as stable as a minimal trail shoe, but for the cushion you're getting here, it feels like a pretty nice balance for me. The last thing I wanted to touch on that I liked about the Salomon Ultra Glide 3s was the price point. It's become all too common these days for shoes to be getting more and more expensive, with some of the super trail shoes hovering around that £200 mark or above. The Ultra Glides have reminded me that I don't need to go out and spend mega money to get a really nice solid trail shoe that's going to do everything I need it to do. And comfort and performance wise, I think it's hard to recommend another trail shoe for the money that would top this for me. Now that I've gone over all of the bits I loved about the Ultra Glide Freeze, there are a couple of things I think Salomon could look at improving on the next model. The first aspect of the shoe I think could be improved would be the durability. It's not terrible, but I've noticed some wear and tear after 100 kilometers of use in this shoe. The midsole's a bit battered with the lettering starting to rub off and small tears in the foam. Although it's mainly a cosmetic thing, other trail shoes I've owned have held up a lot better. For example, the Adidas Terrex Speed Ultras, which I've put over 800 kilometers on now. The midsole looks practically new compared to the Salomons. Also, the outsole is starting to wear a bit in some areas as well, but again, it's not terrible. And it looks like they've used a softer compound for more grip, so it's going to be hard for the outsole to be the most durable on the market. Moving on to dislike number 2, and I've had to think long and hard about this, as there's not really many downsides to this shoe. But if I can modify one thing, I'll just make that toe box a little bit wider. Considering this shoe seems to be aimed at comfort over longer distances, I'd like to see more space in the toe box for the feet to spread out a bit, especially as they swell over the course of the run. So just to sum up my thoughts here, having not been a fan of previous Salomon running shoes, I wasn't expecting to like the Ultra Glide Freeze as much as I did. I think Salomon have created a nice, balanced, reasonably priced do-it-all trail shoe. Although it's not going to break any speed records, and there may be lower, lighter stacked trail shoes out there for all-out efforts. But for me, this shoe provides an option for a cushioned, comfortable trail shoe with plenty of grip that's going to take me on those longer distance runs and races, 100k and upwards. Alright, those were my thoughts on the Salomon Ultra Glide Freeze after running over 100k in them. If you have any questions, please ask away. I hope you enjoyed the review, and see you all next time.